Hi everybody, I am Dani, otherwise known as the Grow Girl. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome here if you're new. So in today's video, I just wanted to talk to you about starting your own backyard garden for 2021. I wanted to give you some kind of tips and guidance on how to start to think about doing your own backyard garden and just show you some things that have worked for me and some things that haven't worked for me. I want you all to be successful, and I think that that comes with a lot of planning, and this is the perfect time of year to get to planning just because there's not a lot going on in January other than planning your garden. As always, if you like this video, give me a big thumbs up and consider subscribing so I can see you here every week with me. And if you want more day-to-day inspiration, be sure to check me out and follow me on Instagram at the Grow Girl Texas. So I'll just kind of give you a little backstory about how I started my backyard garden. So growing up, I've always had an interest in gardening and growing plants. When I was younger with my parents, we would always be outside helping out with the landscaping and the gardening. And I just grew up with a love of watching things grow. When I became an adult, of course, living in an apartment, I tried, just growing things in pots, house plants, very minimal stuff. When my husband and I got married and we moved into our townhouse, I had a little bit of a yard to play with, but really didn't get too serious about it just because the space was minimal and I knew that we wouldn't be staying there forever. So last year when we moved into our house where I had a yard, I had a front yard and a backyard to play with, that's when I decided I wanted to become serious about growing my own garden. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of take you through some different parts of my garden and just show you what all I have done and give you some food for thought and hopefully some inspiration. Okay, so this first picture here is the house when we moved in. As you can see, the front landscaping is pretty basic, a little bit barren and plain. So we actually hired a landscaping company to come in and apply rock and raise the beds up so that we could add in some good quality soil, because it was just gonna be too big of a project for us having just moved in with a new baby. And I went ahead and changed up the landscaping, we moved some trees around, and I think the outcome has been really pretty. There's a lot of different variety. I'll just kind of show you around the front. This video was taken about a month ago, so you can see that I've added some annual color, but I still have a lot of stuff in bloom. I think this was about November when this video was taken, so the weather here was still pretty mild and everything looked really good from over the summer and then kind of cooling off. I've planted some snapdragons to give me some winter color, and then just trying to keep everything nice and tidy and spruced up. But you can see there's a lot of different things going. I try to incorporate in the front, especially some flowers that would attract bees and butterflies, and these pentas and lantanas have been a huge magnet for all the butterflies. I also like the drift roses because they do really well in our summer heat. So getting here to the backyard, this is a picture of 4 of my beds that was taken over the summer when obviously you can see my zucchini plant was growing like crazy. We used to have them spaced out, but I decided to put them together to make it easier to maintain.
Okay, so over here I have my other bed with the strawberries in it. I didn't want to move it at the time because they're all still growing, but I'll probably do that in the future. Okay, so let's go through the process of where do you even want to start when thinking about your garden. I'm going to kind of give you some questions that you want to ask yourself and some guidance here.
So I think the first thing that you want to think about really is what type of gardener are you or do you want to be? And I think that has a lot to do with what are you looking to accomplish and what are you hoping to get out of your garden. And I think a lot of what goes into that is how much time do you have? How much effort do you want to put into it? Do you want something that's going to be pretty self-sustainable, or do you want something that you're really going to have to work at? And I think there's a very broad range of things. So for myself, I work part-time, and the days that I work, I really don't have a lot of time to be outside in the garden. I'm doing good if I can rush home from work and water everything before I go pick my kids up from daycare. So I do have time on the weekends or on my days off to do some gardening, fertilizing, weeding, keep up with stuff, some planting. So I have a fair amount of time, but it's not a ton every day. So I knew that a backyard garden for me had to be manageable, pretty simple, and really easy to maintain. So in thinking about what type of gardener you want to look at, are you trying to grow food for your family or yourself? Are you trying to grow flowers, maybe for decorative purposes? Are you trying to attract wildlife, especially like pollinators like bees and butterflies? Are you just trying to make your home, your outside look pretty so that it's enjoyable to be around? I think you have to think about what are you trying to get out of your garden, and then what are you willing to put into it. And just a note, don't be afraid to try something. The best gardeners kill the most plants, and that's how you're going to learn and grow, is to experience and try new things. I think after you think about what type of gardener you are, then you want to think about what type of garden you want to have in your home. And I think that's going to come from a combination of what are you hoping to grow and what kind of conditions do you have. I know for me, when I started my garden, I knew that I wanted to grow food that my family was going to eat. So I wanted to think about, what do we actually eat? What do my husband and I like? What are things that my kids would be willing to eat and try? And that kind of guided me on things that I started to grow in the vegetable garden. So for instance, one fruit that my whole family loves that gets demolished as soon as I buy it is strawberries. And strawberries can grow really well in our climate as long as you get the right variety. So I knew that I wanted to make that definitely a part of the raised vegetable garden. I also really love flowers. I love just looking at them. I love to cut them and have them in vases decorating my home. And then I love seeing wildlife come and visit, especially bees and butterflies. So it was important to me to incorporate that in the front yard as well as the backyard so that I could enjoy it just for my own viewing pleasure. When you attract pollinators to your garden, it also helps pollinate the rest of your garden, like your vegetables. So that's an important thing to remember. So when you're thinking about what type of garden you want to have, you really have to take your environment into consideration. So you want to think about the temperature range. Does it get very hot here? Does it get very cold? How are you going to protect your plants? How are they going to grow in the most extreme temperatures? You want to think about sun exposure. A vast majority of plants, including most edibles, are going to require a lot of sun, anywhere from 6 to 8 hours or more of sun. So you want to look at the area around your home, and are you going to be able to find a space that you can grow that's going to get a lot of sun. So the next thing would be the ground, the soil. So where I live in Houston, we have a lot of clay in our soil. It doesn't have a lot of nutrients in it, and it doesn't drain very well. So I knew for me, my best bet at being successful was going to be using raised beds. So if you want to build your own raised beds or have someone do that for you, then that's something to think about. If you want to use your own ground, then you want to think about, are you going to have to amend your soil with compost or nutrients or fertilizer or minerals? So after you've thought about what type of gardener you are and then what type of garden you want to have, then you want to start to plan everything out. One thing that I recommend is getting a really good planner and then doing just some general reading and research about things that you're interested in.
So here I just wanted to show you the planner that I got for this next year. And January is a perfect time of year to bust it out and get to thinking about what you want to do. So you can see here in the front, I have some attachments on planting guides. And then this planner actually started in the fall. So you can see here the pages of the months that I've already gone through. I like to jot down when I do things, and then I also make notes to myself on the right side as for what are my goals for the month or things that I need to accomplish. Like in the back, it has some pages I can take notes so that I'm not having to look everything up every time, and I can also keep track of when and where I'm planting things.
I have a video I put out about my fave gardening books and then my planner that I use. I will link it below so that you can check it out. So you've thought about what kind of gardener you are, what kind of garden you want to have. You're starting to think about planning it out. So what things do you want to grow? Using a planner to plan ahead. And I want you to think about planning out for the whole year. So for instance, I knew I wanted to grow strawberries. Strawberries are going to fruit in either the spring or summer for the variety I plant here. So I wanted to backtrack, okay, if my goal is to have strawberries growing come summertime, when do I need to plant them? Okay, backtrack to the fall. That's when you want to get your strawberries in the ground very, very early before they're ever producing fruit. So then I research, okay, what type of strawberry do I want to grow? Can I grow strawberries from seeds? No, it's really hard. You have to buy transplants. So, okay, how do I find and grow transplants? So I did the research on the kind of strawberry. I ordered them. I researched, okay, if I'm going to plant them, how far apart do they need to be? Do I have to use any kind of fertilizer? How do I keep them alive over the winter, like when it freezes? So it takes a lot of research and reading, but I think if you do your homework, it can be very successful for you. Another thing is start out small. Start out with something manageable because you can always grow, but if you start out with too much at once, it's going to get very overwhelming and you're going to get frustrated and give up. So when I started my backyard garden, I only had 3 beds at first. I had a newborn baby, we were in a new house, and I really wanted to get it going, but I knew it had to be something very basic that I could manage. After a while, I added a 4th bed, and then this past fall, I added a 5th bed. And I also have some things growing in pots as well as the front yard. So for me right now, this is pretty manageable. I would like to expand in the future, but we'll just have to see how it goes. And then another thing in planning out your garden is look for local resources. Maybe there's online communities, Facebook groups, Instagram groups that you can join. Maybe there's people you can follow in your community that have a lot of information. Look for local organizations that host classes that you can attend, online seminars. I know that's been very helpful for me. And maybe if there's any books for growing things locally, I have found that to be super helpful because you can go on Google and look up how to grow a tomato. But for instance, in Houston, it is too hot really to grow big tomatoes. It doesn't cool off well at night, and they're not going to fruit and produce that well. The birds are going to eat them up. So the best tomatoes that I grow here are small tomatoes, and those do very well. But you just Google how to grow a tomato, that's not going to tell you that. It's going to give you a lot of basic information. So you really want to look up for your area and your zone. Zone planning is all based off of climate, so how the weather changes throughout the year, and that is vital to understand how things are going to grow in your community. Okay, y'all, I hope that was really helpful, and inspirational and motivational. I can't wait to see how your gardens progress in 2021, and I'll catch you next time.